radio for the masses.
Headline edition, July 8, 1947. The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army.
If the game is rigged, change the game. Game changer.
I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
This is Fade to Black with your host, Jimmy Church, on the Game Changer Radio Network.
All right, welcome, Fade to Black. How you doing? How you doing? Kicking off a brand new week. That's right. Today's Monday, May 20th, 2024. Let's do this, man. I am so ready for tonight's show. We'll get to all of that in a second. That's right. Thomas Jane is with us tonight. I've called this show, I stole it from Thomas, the UFO reality, and I really like that. And we're going to get into that and his new book and all things ET and disclosure related tonight with Thomas. And tomorrow night, Jim Goodall is here, and we're going to be talking about Lockheed Skunk Works, which it's no secret. I live about a mile and a half away from Lockheed Skunk Works out here in Palmdale, California. Jim joins us tomorrow night. And then Wednesday, it's our once a month AMA, AJA. I think it's been a couple of months since. But anyway, technically, once a month, Ask Jimmy Anything. We'll do that Wednesday. Then Thursday night, Brad Olson is back with us. And we're going to talk about the hidden esoteric in plain sight. We'll be doing that Thursday night with Brad. Big week on the show. Now, I've got a full year of events coming up, the full second half of the year, I should say, which starts next week, Thursday night, Contact in the Desert. We'll be hosting the 10th anniversary party, and that's going to be Thursday night, May 30th, in the Crystal Ballroom. Now, all of you know I've hosted Contact in the Desert since it started, and now I am back after taking a couple of years off. We had some things happen around the world, we all know. Well, anyway, I'm back, and I'll see everybody next Thursday night, and that's going to be a lot of fun. And tickets and information are at contactinthedesert.com. Right after that, DisclosureFest, a Stairway to the Stars here in Southern California at Castaic Lake. We have 65 acres. We have the beach somewhere, 10 to 20,000 people. I'll be hosting that, and that is the weekend, summer solstice, June 21st through the 23rd. Again, tickets and stuff are available for that below. And then lastly, then I want to get Thomas in here, the 2024 Conscious Awards in Miami. I'll be hosting that along with Giorgio Tsoukalos. You can get tickets for that. That is August 3rd and 4th. It's a full weekend of events, and the tickets for that are below too as well. Also, I was nominated for Best Talk Show Host, and that came from you guys, and it feels a little bit strange to host an event and be nominated for an award. But if you feel the compassion in your heart, you can go over to Forbidden Knowledge and vote for every category, and especially mine. Yeah. All right. And I'll talk about everything else that I'm doing the rest of the year. I'll do that later on in the week. Right now, I want to get Thomas in here, and we will be discussing what is going on right now with the UFO subject, the UFO reality. We're going to talk about how social media is dealing with this. We're going to be talking about, now, see, this is the deal. On this show, the things that I talk about every day, the things that I enjoy, that's what we're going to be talking about tonight with Thomas. You know, who are we? Where do we come from? What is our place in all of this? What is our future in all of this? We're going to be doing all of that. He's an actor. He's a director. He's a producer. He says, working as a popcorn salesman in Tinseltown for over 25 years. And, but Starred in films like The Mist and Deep Blue Sea and The Punisher. And of course, he played Mickey Mantle in HBO's 61, starred in Stephen King's 1922. And I'm going to jump ahead and say that he has just completed his nonfiction book, A Human's Guide to Visiting Aliens. We're going to be talking about all of that tonight. His links are below over on our website and throughout social media. And I would like to welcome for the first time to Fade to Black, the one and only Thomas Jane. He's right there. Thomas.
Hey, so excited to be here. I got to tell you, I'm a huge fan. And I've been thinking about this all week.
Yeah, and well, it took 18 years, but we won't talk about that. But it finally happened. Here, let's start off here, Thomas. You get the first-time guest disclaimer.
Okay.
You've watched the show enough, you know this is coming. So let's get the first-time guest disclaimer out of the way, which is Thomas is just you and I sitting on my couch having a conversation as friends, and where that conversation starts, it starts. Where it ends, it ends. But we're going to end as friends. We're already friends, but we're going to continue to be friends. Okay. You have to
know each other a little better.
Yeah, exactly. I kind of want to start here because there are some obvious questions that need to come out of the gate. But let's back up for a second and let's just talk about Hollywood in general.
Yeah.
Where the subject, it's okay, right? It's okay to do all the science fiction you want. You can star in any science fiction film, aliens invade, whatever. That's fine. But you can't talk about aliens, right? That's a whole other thing.
Oh my God.
Right. But times are changing, aren't they?
I hope so, pal. I really hope so. Well, I mean, Dan Aykroyd, he talks about aliens, right? I mean, did he take a lot of shit for that?
That's actually a really good point. He did, and then he didn't. If you think about it, right?
That's true. Yeah. I hope I can get away with it. I mean, Jesus, I never really thought of that. I'm like, wait a second, should I not be talking about this stuff? Oh my God. And there's enough stuff that we can't talk about around here.
But do you feel that now, say you're on set, right? And can the subject come up and you don't have to filter yourself?
No, the subject still rarely comes up. And if you do sort of try to broach it a little bit, people just get that stare. They get that far off look in their eyes and they change the subject. In my experience, I haven't been able to have real serious conversations. There are a few people who are interested, but I still, as far as we think we've come since 2017 and the New York Times and the videos that came out that the Pentagon authenticated, since that time, I feel like we've come a long way. But then when you dip your toes into the real world, this is still a fringe topic. This is still, my dad is not a scientist, but he works with scientists. He's a microbiology expert, and he creates he's retired now, but he got into genes in the 70s, right? He was like on the ground floor of that whole microbiology thing that's happened. He works with a lot of scientists. He builds the equipment that these guys need, right? Specialized stuff that they need to do their work. And, he's an open-minded guy. He's read a lot. He's really big into history. He knows a lot about the Civil War. And of course, he's steeped in, his Christmas party would have the woman who cured a particular kind of blood cancer, stuff like that, like pretty down-to-earth guy. And I sent him an early copy of A Human's Guide to Visiting Aliens. And I got to tell you, he didn't say it, but you're kind of a nut. But this was before 2017. And then after 2017, he started sending me little articles and stuff, and so it opened his mind up a little bit. And I think that's the best we can hope for we could get people to we need our foot in the door. We need to crack that door open. I think it's been cracked open a little bit, but boy, you're dealing with media and the government. And of course they're like this, and they don't want you talking about this. I mean, there's how many scientists are actually taking this seriously? There's Avi Loeb, there's Gary Nolan, Hal Puthoff has been back into it since back in the day, but it's a very small number of people, right? Kit Green, these kind of folks, but it's still a fringe phenomenon that is fascinating to me, right? Because the greatest mystery on planet Earth is we're being visited by intelligences from outside Earth. The second greatest mystery is why the hell are we not taking this seriously?
Yeah, and here's the flip side to that. Obviously, when you look at the success of, like the Expanse, for instance, I talk about the Expanse all the time on this show.
Oh, great!
And for good reason. It's just I enjoy science fiction, and when it's good, it's good. Yeah, and the Expanse was way up there, but the world loves this stuff. You look at Marvel and things, or whatever it is. Hollywood. You want something greenlit, write an alien invasion screenplay. So the world wants this knowledge, right?
Yeah, the fantasy basket, though, right? If it's in a fantasy basket, the sky's the limit. But when you try to sort of bridge those two worlds, the world that we live in, the world that we wake up in, and alien, it's two different baskets. Is that where you're going?
Well, so yes and no, because then we have something like the success of Ancient Aliens, which that just came out of nowhere. They're at the 20th season. You know how hard it is to get to season 2 of anything, right?
Amazing how that caught fire, and I even talked to people who are really into Ancient Aliens, and they can't wrap their mind around what's going on right now. And again, like Ancient Aliens puts it in this basket where it's way far away, it's somewhere out there in the distant past, the misty past, whereas, the hard reality of what's going on right now is still, I think, a psychological leap that is difficult for most people to make, And
for you, okay, now here's the softball. Remember, we're going to do baseball and UFOs tonight. Okay, so awesome. Here's the softball underarm pitch. What happened to you? Right? There was something in your life where you just drove off and took an exit and jumped into the subject.
Yep.
Did you see something?
I saw something, and I don't think the details are particularly, I think that what happened was sacred, it was a life-changing event for me. But more importantly, that's happened to thousands, maybe millions of people around the world. Some people don't know what to do with it, so they kind of forget about it. Other people keep it to themselves. I think most people might keep it to themselves, and then other people, it kind of turns a light bulb on and sends you down. I think a lot of the people, you would know this because I've never been to Contact, but I would imagine that there's a lot of people there that are in a similar boat. They've had an experience, or they're still having them if they're abductees, and they want answers. And they also want to explore this subject, in a safe environment where other people understand what the hell they're talking about. Is that true?
Yeah, that's one of the beautiful things about this community. In that when you go to, because it's your safe place, right? And you don't necessarily talk to your wife or a coworker or your kids about the subject, but you can go to a conference And man, Thomas,
Let it all hang out.
I'm going to introduce you to some people. Okay, we're going to have some fun there.
Fantastic.
But you're going to step up, and there's going to be a couple of people talking, and just listen.
Right.
Just
Yeah,
listen.
okay.
And they could be strangers, right?
Yep.
But they're going to
Sure.
go, okay, so last week, right? And just listen. And
Really?
because they don't get a chance to talk about this, but to go
See that.
into a safe space where
Right.
it's like
Right.
the colors of Benetton, right?
Right. And also get other perspectives, because we have one brain and we can only read and watch so many things. But you get a bunch of people who are focused on the same thing. I would imagine information just starts coming in from all different directions, stuff you never thought of, stuff you never considered. You probably discover new books, new ideas, which I think is what turns me on, new ideas on the subject.
Now, so what was this sighting? What did you see?
Well, like I said, I don't want to. I saw something that I couldn't explain. I saw something that I wasn't hallucinating. I was sober. I was awake, and I saw something that I absolutely could not explain. That changed my life from one day to the next. I never thought about consciousness. I never thought about sort of the limits of our scientific endeavor. I never thought about the planet. I was totally geared in to the Western world view of this is my life. I've got a family. I've got a house. I've got a job. I enjoy my job. And I was so focused on that and having a great time, by the way, completely bought in. And from one day to the next, everything was called into question. So I didn't know where to begin. I didn't know where. I called a psychic. I've never spoken to a psychic in my life to try to get some insight. Has anyone else seen things like this? And eventually, relatively quickly, I found the UFO. The books. I started reading these damn old books, by Donald Kehoe and, Frank Edwards and all these guys, Wendell Stevens, just these Jim and Carol Lorenzen, and just had my mind blown into how deep the subject was, how well it had been researched and thought about, and how much hard evidence is actually brought to the table. Ted Phillips with his 3,000 trace cases where these found recorded, documented, real evidence of alien, UFO craft landing somewhere. 3,000. I mean, he may have done more than that, but at least 3. That's a hell of a document, So when people say, "Hey, well, there's no real evidence," I beg to differ. And of course, everyone does who understands the subject. But there's a reason, there's a reason that there's a UFO taboo, and that's exactly what it is. It's a UFO taboo, and right now is an interesting time because we're kind of flirting with the taboo a little bit. But in my opinion, the taboo is strong and it's firm, and it exists for a reason. And scientists, even if they're interested in the subject, and a lot of them are, there's only so far they can go within the system of mainstream, society. And there's a reason for that. There's a reason that government and science can't talk about UFOs. There's actually a really good paper. It was written in 2007. It was by a couple. Well, the first name guy is Wendt, WENDT or something like that, and Duvall, and it's called The UFO Taboo. You guys can Google it. 2007 paper, The UFO Taboo. I found that to be incredibly illuminating because it brought some clarity to the subject, which I kept banging my head against, which is why the hell is our scientists not taking this seriously? And to cut to the chase, essentially, government is a sovereignty, right? We have sovereignties. They're sovereign nations. A government will make a law, and then you will follow that law, and anything that's outside that law is still outside the law, right? And government funds science. So what you're looking at is UFOs may or may not be of intelligent origin, right? If they are of intelligent origin, if we go down this rabbit hole and we discover an alien intelligence on the other side of those UFOs, that is not even outside the law. It's not in the law. It's not outside the law. It's in what they call a state of exception. It exists in this nebulous place, which COVID did for a while, right? Until the vaccine and the crackdown. COVID was a state of exception. It's almost like a chaotic kind of unknown. What the hell are we going to do about this? UFOs, alien intelligence, is a state of exception. But if it does turn out to be, aliens, then you're looking at another consciousness, another civilization, another society that is never going to be beholden to the state. And not only that, it challenges human sovereignty. UFOs and alien intelligence challenge human sovereignty. And that is the wall of the UFO taboo. That's why we can't get on the other side of that wall through government and science. That's why we've got our conferences and our books and our podcasts. That's why, the amazing, incredible event that Leslie Kean and Ralph Blumenthal published, that New York Times article. That was an incredible blow. It shook the walls of government, seriously shook the walls. And they, ever since then, have been trying to figure out how to protect those walls and make them stop shaking.
When you had your sighting, you're a public figure, and you have this paradigm shift, and now that forces you, because it's out of your control, right? It's right. Out of the boundaries. It's out of your control. But now you are faced with a decision, right? Where you have this paradigm shift. Oh, holy crap! You mean this stuff is real? Is it? Well, right. And then you have a decision to make. Do you talk about it, right, or do you keep it inside? How did that weigh down on you?
I never thought about talking about it. In fact, I would never be talking about it. I didn't feel like I had anything to contribute to the conversation, and I couldn't see how that could possibly be beneficial to me as a figure in society. I started making notes. I made a lot of notes, and I just started sort of putting these puzzle pieces together and trying to get a grip on the phenomenon, which is impossible. It's so large. There's so many different aspects of human life that this phenomenon touches on and really sort of shakes up. I started sort of, this was 15. I was talking to my mom. I couldn't remember how long I've been doing this. So I was talking to my mother, and I know that it was a year before my sister died, because I remember telling my sister about this. I told very few people. My sister was one of them. I haven't even told my mother and father about this, really. A little bit, but not really. And she goes, yeah. My sister died in 2011, so it was somewhere in 2010. 15 years.
That is, it's so telling, because when you have an opportunity here, right, and the community is waiting for somebody like Thomas Jane, right? We have our support groups, right? we can talk to each other, but there are people out there that need to turn to a friend, husband, whatever, and go, see, Thomas Jane is talking about it.
Hey,
You know what I mean?
sure, right?
You know, and that's a
the more we can get, better.
right,
For
right.
sure.
Are you aware of that and how you affect the people in this community? Knowing,
I wouldn't say that was my motivation at all, but I would say that there's a battle right now for free speech, and we're more than ever before, more than I've ever experienced. We're starting to feel sort of these clamps come down on what we're allowed to talk about, not talk about, think about. And I thought that's super dangerous. Everybody's thinking the same thing. Wow, this is dangerous. Anything we can do to chip away at the walls that are sort of closing in on us right now, I think is important. And one of the things, I mean, if you want to just do an end around and go for the main line, right for the jugular, it would be that there's another consciousness. There's another conscious civilization, society, whatever it is. It's the words we use are probably inadequate but the closest we can come to is an alien civilization, an alien society that's not only existing in the universe. That's great, and you talk to most people, scientists, who are like, sure, it's a big world, it's a big universe. It wasn't always like that, by the way. Back in 30, 40 years ago, people were like, no, this is probably, life is so hard to develop and get a foothold that this probably is the only place that it's ever happened. Now we're starting to think, wow, it's a big world and a big universe. Maybe we're not the only ones. But not only that, they're here. They're here. They're here for, it's mind-boggling, and they're here for a reason. And they possess a collective intelligence that I think we need. We don't need we can get into that. I'm not talking about advice. I'm not talking about a handout, and we should get into that a little bit. But I am talking about what can we learn? Somehow these civilizations have surmounted the bottlenecks that have probably murdered countless other civilizations,
took them out.
And that, and we're in a similar sort of bottleneck right now. NASA put out a study, all the major civilizations have collapsed, over time. And there's various reasons for that, resource depletion, but mostly, it's both a symptom and a cause. Is the people in power get more and more power, and the balance of society starts to get top heavy, and then it collapses. And that's basically how they all work. No matter what the other a drought, or some other sort of climate change, or those are sort of the, when you're 70 years old, your body is frail enough that you get hit by a car, which would normally be an expensive insurance thing, can take you out. So we're kind of at that we're old and it doesn't take a lot. So when things come around like climate change or the economy or whatever the hell, we're fragile, and all the money and the power is way up here, so it's easy for us to collapse. We're vulnerable.
Yeah, I think that's an honest a question out of the gate to ET would be, okay, how did you make it?
How did you do it?
How did you survive? I mean, you have to. You have climate change. We have the sun. We have asteroid impacts. We have diseases. We have all those normal things that we have to somehow figure out and get past.
Yeah.
But even if we survive all of that, then there's something else, like maybe even an alien invasion, right? But we have
AI
is
is
AI,
a bigger
AI.
threat than I think people are able to wrap their mind around right now. And I think that the reason for that is, again, because AI in itself is just a tool. But when you're looking at a society where there's a massive power grab, where there's a massive sort of inclination to control what people say, what they do, what they think, where this becomes sort of with grasping at straws of a dying civilization trying to get a grip on society, then AI can be used as a tool to take everybody out. Not that that would be the intent, but that would be the result. So I think that's really dangerous. And aliens, obviously, I mean, I think it's as obvious as, biology. Aliens have AI that we can't even imagine, whatever is beyond artificial general intelligence. Like, they're swimming in a world of information that would boggle our minds. Jim Sparks is an abductee. One of really great stuff. You guys should do a little research on Jim Sparks, the abductee. He had some amazing experiences with aliens, and he said that the aliens that he dealt with could think hundreds of times faster than he could. And they had to slow way down to be able to communicate with Jim. And that is a wonderful indication of sort of just a little glimpse into, alien mind, which is mind-boggling, because they're not just one or two steps ahead of us. We can kind of imagine a world where, maybe we've got a chip in our head and we're able to watch YouTube in our brain or whatever, whatever that is. We're able to kind of deal with, maybe there's a little group, if I'm working on a project in a business and there's 8 of us and we all kind of tune into each other, we can get a lot more done. Duke University they did experiments where they're starting to link brain chips into monkeys. This was 2015. They put 3 chips in the brains of monkeys, and those 3 monkeys were able to figure out how to work together to solve problems. And they were able to do things that the one monkey couldn't do on his own. Fascinating. But
you bring up a really good point, and it's like the elephant in the room. We're pretty cool, right? We can get to Mars and we're going back to the moon and we're doing this, in our own little star system. But if ET is getting here,
right,
they're way beyond whatever it is that we can think about. They are way beyond that. And I don't know if our ability to understand is quite there.
No, one thing we have a lot of trouble with is complex systems. You say we're smart. Yeah, we're pretty smart. But most of our math is Euclidean. It deals with flat planes. And that was a huge problem with relativity for a while, because they had to somehow work in the other dimensions of time and space that would account for the 3-dimensional moving behemoth that they were trying to sort of wrap their math around. Because you can do it in a straight line. You can do it up and down and to the side. Basically, we're 3-dimensional creatures. We've got pretty good control over 2 dimensions. Aliens are, they could be 4th or 5th dimensional creatures, and so 3 dimensions to them is probably like 2 dimensions is to us.
So the idea of technology and where we are now, you brought this up, so I'm going to circle back. Consciousness, we've taken the material world pretty far.
Yeah.
Right. All we can do, it's material. We're dealing with atoms, right? We're dealing with particles. We make it smaller. We make it faster.
Almost. Right? We're almost at the nanotechnological revolution. That's coming too. That's another tipping point right there. Yeah.
And so the next phase of evolution has got to be that intangible, right? It's probably consciousness.
consciousness will become more and more into play as we start connecting. Social media is like the training wheels for something like a collective consciousness. And look at the chaos that social media is giving us. The sea of, early on, I read a book about people that this was before everybody was getting canceled, but some woman would be flying on a plane, and before she got on the plane, she'd make a snarky tweet. And by the time she got off that plane, the world had been destroyed around her, ruining her life, fired from her job. I mean, just like, and that was absentmindedly typing something that you thought was funny while you're waiting to get on an airplane. You get off that airplane, your life is done. Like, that is a new phenomenon. So we're trying to deal with other people's consciousness, right? We're having this huge debate over who we are, who we think we are, who you should say that I am, right? This idea of the personal private self with all these other personal private egos running around in the world, 8 billion of them. Who know how many are online? Half of them, 3 billion people is something. And so we're just starting to sort of try to get a grip on that. Take that further, and you're actually merging consciousnesses, right? Is it really interesting sort of thing that I read, where this brain chip where they could hook people up together. First of all, when there's too many people right now, I think it's like 5 or 6, it's just a mess. But when you get a few people together, one of the first things that you have to overcome is ego. It's sort of a ego wall, that we've never had to deal with in this way before. And I think that one of the things that we're going to have to learn is letting go of this egoic self that has been so important in the drive for humanity. It's what makes us want to succeed. It's what makes us bathe in the morning and comb our hair, and, show up in the world, and gives us the drive to want to succeed and make money, impress our friends, impress the community, make a contribution to the community. It's all about ego. You get a priest in a church. I mean, it makes him feel good. That's going to have to change, and how that's going to change, I don't know. But if you're dealing with artificial intelligence with consciousness, because right now we're excited to be able to hook our iPhones up to our brain, like, won't that be cool? But that's just the beginning. It's merging our minds, the merging of minds. And how is that going to work? One of the really fascinating things for me, telepathy, the fact that most alien encounters involve some form of telepathy. And this goes all the way back to the beginning of the phenomenon, and what is that? Is it technical? Is it natural? Is it something that they can genetically engineer? And then how does it work? Do I send my thoughts to one person, or if there's a room of people, can I just, and if everybody's doing that, that's a mess.
I think about that all the time. And ET, especially with physics and entanglement, because that's
Right.
got to be the basis of it, right?
That might be the entry point.
Yeah,
right.
the foundation of it. But the reason why for me is because it's in the speed of now.
Right. That's really fascinating. Yeah.
Yeah, because if you're cruising around the universe, like, okay, I didn't want to tie the two together, but when you think about something like the Expanse or Star Trek or right, but when you're out on a ship and you're cruising around the universe and you need to communicate, and you're light years away, you can't wait 5 light years for the return call.
Right.
It's got to happen at the speed of now, and that would be entanglement. I would think that is where we are at.
And yeah, it's really interesting because I'm on the same boat that you are. I do think, and I've done a little research. I've read Dean Radin and his Psi experiments. I really love. There's a great book called The Secret Life of Plants. And it came out, I think, in the 70s during the flower power revolution, but it's really well researched. And essentially, Cleve Baxter is this cat who worked for the CIA. He was an expert on lying. He had those machines. What are they called?
Polygraph. Polygraph. Yeah.
So he was an expert. He was the CIA expert. He taught the other CIA guys how to work a polygraph. And one day he's sitting in his office and he's got a rhododendron with those big meaty leaves. And he thought to himself, what happens if I took those little nodes and put them on that leaf? You know, just a crazy idea, but it's the 70s. So he did put it on there. Right. And of course, nothing happened. And then he thought to himself, what happens if I burn that leaf? Would it react? And the spike on his polygraph, the moment he had the thought, I'm going to burn that leaf. And he's like, what the hell was that? So he went and got some matches and he did burn the leaf and he only got a little blip out of the actual burning. It was the thoughts that somehow these plants were tuning into. It sent him down a rabbit hole, changed his life. Sent him down a rabbit hole that he researched for the rest of his life. And the conclusion that he came to was that consciousness, somehow we have a conscious connection with all living things and that we could influence that. You know, my favorite experiment that he did, he had one plant, right? And he had like 8 research students or something. And he goes, listen, we're going to put one person at a time in this room, right? One of these people is actually going to destroy the plant. And then, but nobody's going to know who the destroyer was. And then we're going to hook up the thing. Oh, there were 2 plants. So there's one plant and there's one that gets destroyed. So then they hook the thing up to the other plant, send in every person one at a time, and the guy who killed the plant got a spike.
The murderer. Yeah, one of them is a murderer, and the plant is a witness to a crime.
Incredible, right? I mean, the implications of that are incredible, but I bring it up because one experiment that he wanted to do and never got to do was take some plants, put them on a rover on Mars, right? Take some plants, put them in a hydroponic deal, hook up the nodes to them, and put it on Mars, and then interact and see if he could get a hit from that, and then measure the time, because light from Mars is takes a couple of minutes. But if consciousness was instantaneous, that would be a great way to prove it. That research has never been done, but I'm in the same boat. I think it's instantaneous. And if it is, then you're right. That's exactly how aliens are communicating, over time and space. And why wouldn't it be? I mean, about remote viewing and all that. It sure seems like, and if that's true, if we're able, again, it's like, this is something that everybody should be getting a research grant to test this, man. But when we start playing with our consciousness, when we start the rudimentary melding of the minds in society, then those experiments will become interesting, to society, and we'll figure it out. And we'll figure it out.
Well, let's before we hit the break, I want to touch on something. We'll pick up on this more when we come back. But when Sean Kirkpatrick and Arrow came out with their report last 6 weeks ago, and literally said Military's got nothing. We've got nothing. Everything's a big no.
I got the quote right here. A lengthy Defense Department review of U.S. government activities related to unidentified anomalous phenomena, more commonly known as UFOs, has found no evidence that extraterrestrial intelligence has visited Earth or that authorities have recovered crashed alien spacecraft.
Now, should Sean Kirkpatrick, now I could be wrong here, but if you're going to run a department like an organization like Arrow, shouldn't you read Richard Dolan's UFOs in the National Security State, parts 1 and 2? Because that is the government's reporting of UFO incidents. Shouldn't that be required reading?
Yeah, well, absolutely not, because of what we talked about, the UFO taboo. It's very real. It threatens the sovereignty of governments. It shakes them to their core. And yeah, I mean, a sane person would do that. Absolutely.
It's just when we look back at we can start at night. Everybody picks 1947, so we'll do that out of convenience. But when you look back through those 7-8 decades now, right, soon to be 9, the compilation of incidents that has happened, it seems that the world can handle it. Nobody's freaked out. Right after the New York Times, the last time I checked, the Vatican is still there.
Yeah. You mean back in the day, it was front page news, the 40s and 50s, on up until December of 1968, when, Project Condon Report put out their verdicts.
Well, you brought up, that's such a good point. And you brought up Donald Kehoe. I was talking the other day, this was last week, I'm on the phone with Richard Dolan, and I said, man, I just saw this thing, and I just turned on the TV, and it was Donald Kehoe doing a press conference around 1960. And I'm telling Richard about it, and it was in color. It was film. It's not surprising that it's in color. But anyway, and I said to Richard, you need to go and check this out. I'll send you the information on it. But what Donald was saying was everything that we're saying today.
Right.
Nothing has changed.
That's right.
Nothing has
changed.
Merry-go-round.
We've come around to, is it Russian? Is it Chinese? I mean, this is the original conversation. We're being brought around in a merry-go-round because everybody's dead from that time. It's only nerds like us that study the history understand that this is a merry-go-round. The government's just bringing, I don't know. Is it real? Let's find out. Oh, no, nothing to see here, guys. We looked, we promise. Oh,
and to that end, if Donald, nightcap, and you could just go back and you think about what they were doing for disclosure back then,
right?
And you bring us, all the way through to today, and I would say this: what in a legal sense, what right does the government have to keep nature from us?
Exactly. That's right.
Because that's nature. That's nature. That's not
right.
Spy versus spy, government secrets. This is
nature.
Natural.
Human, the universe. You know what that relates to? That's that perfect corollary to that is LSD. When LSD came out, invented in the late 40s, and then people started playing with it in the 50s, people were losing their minds. They were like, this could be one of the greatest therapeutic tools that we've ever had. Psychologists were doing studies. They were giving it to students. I mean, in controlled conditions, they were studying it, how this might help with PTSD and depression and alcoholism. And then it gained popularity in the 60s with the hippies and stuff, and it became a thing. And as soon as it started branching out into mainstream society, the government came down hard. First of all, this is absolutely safe. It's been studied for years and years, and yet they Schedule 1 hallucinogenic drugs, which is up there with cocaine and heroin. I mean, they came down and like, this is dangerous. And then all the stories came out. When I was in elementary school, I knew that if you took LSD, you'd climb a flagpole and jump off, and that would be the end of you. So, and that's the same thing. It's a natural psilocybin, and LSD from ergot is a natural substance you available for our brains, our consciousness, our spirituality, and yet somehow the government has the right to hammer that stuff down and make it completely illegal. You'll spend years in jail. I mean, it's criminal what they did to criminalize hallucinogenic drugs. So it's a really interesting parallel to the same thing.
Is it because, I mean, there's a multitude of answers to this question, but it is out in front of everybody. Why keep something like, what is so paramount? What is so important?
Right.
Because you know something. Saying that you know nothing is not true.
Right.
You know,
exactly.
and keeping that from us, that fundamental knowledge of us and the universe is not right. What do you think their excuse is? And does it become a sovereign and legal issue, something that's judicial?
It dissolves the walls and structures of society. It exposes the hallucination, the shared hallucination that we call modern society, government structure, Western power structures, money, it dissolves all of that. And they both do the exact same thing. Alien intelligence and psychedelic drugs are natural. They're universal. They're our birthright. It's where we live. It's what we live with. It's part of our reality. And yet what they do is completely threaten the power structures that be. Because, I mean, look what happened to the hippies in the 60s. They were like, what the fuck are we doing? This is insane.
That's so true, though. And I often wonder, what is it that what would freak us out? I mean, what would freak us out? And I'm thinking more and more today, like less and less would freak us out.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I just don't know. I don't think aliens are going to freak us out.
What do you mean? You mean freak us out to the point where? Oh, you mean like the Brookings report? It said,
yeah. The Rand Corporation.
People will be running around on the streets, and the religion will collapse, and just everything will fall apart. Right.
Yeah. And I don't see that as part of our reality, at least when it comes to the alien question.
No, of course not. It's not part of our reality. But there's a kernel of truth in that it will make us rethink who we are, what consciousness is, and the main thing, the really important thing, what are we doing here? What's our purpose? Do we have one? I mean, aside from, make as much money as possible, screw as many girls as you can, have a great time, hopefully die with your family around you crying, like, okay, that's good. That works. Nothing wrong with all that stuff. But is that it? And is there something that we can aspire to as a civilization, right? It calls into question countries, borders, and systems that the people in power rely on. It's how they've gotten so damn rich.
Here's the interesting part, and I'm going to go back. I hate to do it. I would do it if you were not on the show. Okay, just so you know. I use something like the Expanse as an example, where you have Earth, you have the moon, you have Mars, and you have the belters, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, right. But you don't have it segmented and broken down on the inside of that. Just like we look at Martians are from Mars,
Right.
right? But here on Earth, we don't call ourselves Earthlings.
Right.
We
Right.
don't do that, and that's the way ET would look at us as Earthlings.
That's right.
But
We don't have that communal identity, you know, our identity. And right now we're dealing with essentially the more identity buckets that you can be sort of forced into, then the more you have to squabble about. And it's the old divide and conquer, you know. We can fit a bunch of people into this bucket and a bunch of other people into that bucket. We'll get them all fighting about which bucket, you know, that they're in, when really the whole idea of buckets is all made up in the first place, you idiots.
So how do we'll pick this up when we come back. How do we move past it? How do we get to that point? How do we get rid of the artificial lines that divide countries and everything? How do we move past all of that?
By recognizing that we're not alone in the universe, and that other civilizations far wiser, far older, are not only exist, but they're here. Who knows? Even if they didn't want to share us a cure for cancer with us, or give us free energy devices, which I don't think they should do. Who knows what the riches that we would be able to learn from just the basic facts. You know, we'd have to completely rewrite gravity, because according to Einsteinian relativity, that should not happen. And that's just a fact. You know, that should be impossible. If you want to have an anti-gravitational force in general relativity, you would need something equal or greater to the mass of the Earth to be able to do that. I mean, it just doesn't, the math just doesn't work, which is why most scientists throw everything out without even having to look at it. I'm like, no. It's what the hell are you talking about?
Right. And so it's almost like catch-22, right? We're right back there. And I get it, that circle that you were talking about, in that we need something like disclosure that we are not alone in the universe,
right?
To respect our brothers and sisters on this planet, respect this planet, and grow and mature and move forward.
Yeah,
right?
But here I think that we're in a unique situation, which again is why we're seeing these censorship regimes starting to crack down, because we know we don't need the government to tell us what's real as much as we used to. And that is declining. You know, we have social media, we have podcasts, we have the internet, we can do our own research. We can, you know, we're way more educated than any generation that came before us on any subject that you happen to want to know about. You'll find information. And if you can do critical thinking, you will figure some shit out. And nobody is going to be able to tell you what's real. That's happening, and it's happening a lot. And I think that that's sort of, to answer your question, the way forward is a communal sort of outreach program where we just slowly raise people's consciousness, pique their interest, get them to understand the consequences if this is real. You know, we're not trying to convince anybody. You have to do that work by yourself. But why should you? Why should I look in to alien intelligence, visiting aliens, UFOs? What's in it for me? You know?
Well, what's the alternative, Thomas? If we're told we are alone, okay, this is official, there's nothing else out there. Well, right. You know what? There's no reason to. Let's just party, right? Let's just burn this sucker down. But if there is a reason to progress and make friends and get a seat at the table,
that's right.
Then some of those differences dissolve.
You're absolutely right. All we need to do is recognize that alien intelligence exists, that they're visiting us, for us to start to get our shit together. You know. For us to be like, wait a second, you know, it's a mirror. You can't help but when another consciousness sets its gaze upon you and you upon it, you are recognized, you are seen. And to be seen by something that's outside of human society is an experience that we haven't had yet collectively. And if we do have that experience, we're going to start getting our shit together real fast. You know, we're going to look around and go, wow, this place is a mess.
It's true. It's true. I mean, if they told me we're alone in the universe, I'm a heroin junkie tomorrow. I don't care. Sure, okay. Yeah, what? There's no reason for anything.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
similar to the there is no God, God is dead, and all that. Very similar. And there's a lot of great parallels there. The book American Cosmic is great. Diane, I can never say her last name.
Pasulka.
She makes those parallels in a really convincing way, you know. It does, which is a positive and a negative. You know, we could run the risk of deifying alien intelligence if we don't come at this sort of with both eyes open and without one arm tied behind our back, which is the way that the government would want it to happen. See, disclosure comes from the government, comes with, you know, what are they called? You know,
asterisk. Yeah. Asterisk.
Yeah. And it causes quite a few of them, you know.
Let's take our Thomas, let's take our break right here. This is Fade to Black. Our guest tonight, Thomas Jane. We'll be right back after this short break. This is Fade to Black. Subscribe to our YouTube channel to get your alerts and access to over 2,000 videos. Click that subscribe button right now. Go to jimmychurchradio.com and get the Fade to Black official podcast. 2,000 episodes, all of them commercial free for just $2 a month. This is Jimmy Church. Please visit and explore Egypt this October 3rd through the 14th, 2024 with Billy, Elizabeth, myself, and very special guest and the #1 podcaster in the world, Sean Kelly. It's simple to do. Just go to forbiddenknowledge.com and click on upcoming tours or click on the link below. We'll see you there. Watch Into the Vortex on Gaia TV. It's Fade to Black for the screen. Simple to do. Go to Gaia.com, search Jimmy Church, or click on the link below. Follow Fade to Black on Twitter at JChurchRadio. Get all of the show updates every single day. It's now called X, but who cares? How you doing? Jimmy Church here. Special announcement. Get your Fade to Black T-shirts. That's right. Help support the show. Help support everything that we do over here. We've got 2 T-shirts. We've got 2 ways to get them. And right now, if you get a Game Changer membership for a limited time, you will get Fade to Black Blend coffee with your Game Changer membership. That's right. We have 2 T-shirts. We have the original, the classic Fade to Black T-shirt. You know you want one. Post a picture. Send it to us. We'll put it in our Fade to Black gallery. And we've got the new official Fade to Black T-shirt drawn by Michael Oming. 2 T-shirts, 2 ways to get them. Get yours today. Everything is in stock. Everything gets autographed. Everything includes shipping. And you're going to get a tracking number. And with a Game Changer membership, you get an email to me. You get unlimited commercial-free downloads of the show. Those are uploaded every single night after the show to the website. So don't delay. Get your Fade to Black T-shirt today. Go Beckley Teppy. Go to jimmychurchradio.com and become a Fadernaut. Get a membership. That's right. Everything is commercial free. You have access to downloads, and you get to call yourself a Fadernaut. River Moon Coffee, makers of the Fade to Black blend. Truly the best coffee on planet Earth. Just visit rivermoonwellness.com or their Amazon store. It's all simple to do. You can check out the Fade to Black blend, the Game Changer blend, or any of their Black Moon Wellness products. It's the only coffee I drink. It is the best, and it's Doc. Again, rivermoonwellness.com. All right. Welcome back, Fade to Black. I am your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight, actor, producer, director Thomas Jane is with us. And Thomas, I'm only going to do this once. I'm going to indulge myself. And that's it. We're going to move on. But Stephen Strait.
Oh, Strait, yeah. Good guy.
How, just really briefly, before the Expanse, I didn't know anything about him.
Right.
And of course, you know, I know you, and you start. It starts off as a murder mystery, I guess we can call it that in the first episode.
Like a film noir murder mystery.
That's right. That's right. And you're the detective, and so, but the way that Stephen evolved into this role.
Right.
He ran with it. He took it. How cool was it to work with somebody like that with that kind of talent?
Oh, you like Strait, huh?
It was what. Okay, you know what it was. You know what it is. He's like a young Billy Bob Thornton. I could never get that out of my eyeballs. But yeah, I thought that he took the role, and I just wanted your take on that.
I think, especially with a younger actor on a show, and Steve's a full-grown man. He's been around the block. He's a wonderful actor, but with any part. Including myself, when you grow and evolve with the character, it takes a little bit for you to get your feet wet and to feel it, and to really sort of sit in that character. And if you're any good at your job, you're thinking about it on the weekends, and you're looking at the arc of the season that you're in the middle of, and you're trying to carve something out for yourself that makes sense on an emotional level. And obviously Steve is that kind of actor. You tend to sort of sit with the character, becomes part of your clothes after a while. And the good actors, it's part of the joy of watching a good show is that the actors start to blossom. And I certainly found that with The Expanse. I directed an episode of season 5, and I got to work with Steve quite a bit. And it was a really neat collaboration because we both knew the characters so well, and all the actors that I got to work with in season 5 were just, season 5, everybody's sitting really comfortably in their characters, and we were able to have a lot of fun. It really becomes a joy when you start working with actors who you just get out of the way, and they know it way better than you. And Steve is certainly one of the really nice guy. He ran, he was sort of the captain of the team of actors. When I wanted to rehearse on the weekends, I'd always text Steve. Steve would text everybody else and get a time together and come back to me. So he was the captain off screen also, and I thought that was
very cool. One last thing. This is just a question for me. Is you were able to fedora detective, but in a science fiction setting,
I love it.
And that has to be really fun where you get right.
Absolutely loved it. I'm a huge film noir fan and have been for a long time. It's why I took the role. Of course the books were great, but and it was a great team. But I was super pumped to be able to flex my film noir muscles. I really had fun doing that. I missed it when it was gone. That's why I came back and directed an episode. They couldn't get rid of me.
I'm going to tell you, I'm glad that another network stepped up because
no kidding,
it was just too good.
That was all Jeff Bezos. Jeff Bezos was a fan of the show, and he goes, "Wait a second," and he just brought it right over. Happened really fast. It was really cool.
Yeah. It's just so good. Okay, so back to these baby steps. It seems that we have a multi-pronged thing going on. We have the news and the media when it comes to disclosure. Now, Suddenly, somebody flipped a switch somewhere and said it's okay to talk about this. So we've got the media, we've got the Pentagon, we've got Congress, and we've got the media. We have entertainment and what is going on that end. And then the fourth thing is exoplanets and science and the knowledge of the universe that is coming in.
The James Webb and that little planet that they think they found a sign of life on. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. It's all coming at us, not as fast as we think, but then again, I think it's like a train running down the tracks. We
seem to be at sort of the beginning of the track that's going to take us to one destination. We seem to be on the train. You're right. There's a great coalescence of different factors that are all pointing in the same direction. I think that the exoplanet thing is interesting. I often think, because obviously people that sort of control these organizations know what's going on, and to some extent they're able to kind of guide the release of knowledge, and I think that if science were to help with disclosure, they would start with something simple, like crinoids on Mars or this planet that shows signs of life. I mean, it's only a matter of time. We're looking, and it's only a matter of time before scientists say, we've got a 90%, possibility that we've got a planet with life on it. I mean, even that news is going to be world shaking. And I think that going in order like that, baby steps, like you said, I think that is not the worst thing. It's not the worst way to let people wrap their minds around this.
Do you think the government's waiting for that? Right? That science could step in first so they would have an excuse to say, okay, there's life out there.
I'm suspicious. I'm suspicious of NASA and I'm not, Mars. I forget the researcher's name, but he put out some really compelling evidence that crinoids had been discovered by one of the rovers. And instead of sort of taking pictures of it or taking a sample, it smashed it. It smashed it up, and it drove him nuts. He's like, why the hell? Even if there was just a 1% chance that this thing could have an organic origin, why the hell would you do that? And I think that we may have that evidence already. There was the Mars meteor back in the 90s, or what was it? Bill Clinton was announcing, and it made the stock market crash for the day. It can shake things up, and we're tuned in, but we need to go through proper channels. So I think, that's probably going to be the way it rolls out. And I think, they're bending the hose. They're not ready for that yet. Not yet.
When David Grush made his statements to the House, he's raised his right hand, right, and made some pretty incredible claims.
Yep.
Do you think that behind the scenes that somebody stepped up and said, you know what, enough is enough, we let you have your fun, but this conversation is ending now? Because Grush, it didn't seem to go anywhere after that.
Dolan seems to think that there's two factions. One faction within the military, Pentagon, Congress. One faction wants this information to come out and has wanted it to come out for a long time. We remember Paul Hellyer, the Canadian minister, I forget what the hell they call him up there, but he was making some really interesting statements. We remember the disclosure conference that they had. What was it, 2011? They had one in 2001, and then again 10 years later, something like that. So there's a faction of people that want this to come out, and there's a faction of people that don't. And that, I think that's the tension that we're seeing. I think that's why we've even gotten guys like Grush or the New York Times article or the Pentagon authenticating videos, and I also think that they have to give us something. They feel like, because of the world we live in now, it used to be enough for Condon to come out and go, we've looked at this thing for 2 years. Science wouldn't be, advanced by the study of this, so we're going to let it go. And that was enough, but it's not enough now. We need a little bit more in order to just sort of keep the boat afloat. Like, in other words, you got to give a little. And I think that that's what they've been doing, to try to keep the status quo and try to keep a lid on it, which is paradoxical, but I think it's true. I think they don't want to look like complete idiots, because we've got so much information and there's so much that you can learn, and there's so many really credible sources that you can dig up. So if the government were to still, like 1969, be saying there's nothing to see here, then that would be too suspicious. I like what Dolan thinks, that there are a couple of different factions. Some people are pushing, some people are pulling, and we're sort of watching the fallout. I'm not surprised at all that we've slowed down, that the Arrow report came out and tried to say the exact same thing they did 55 years ago. I'm not, it doesn't surprise me at all.
Okay. So there's a few ways to look at this. One, to know that there's life out there and the government is aware of that. And then it's a whole nother consideration if our government and other governments of the world are in contact, right? That there is communication and there is something else beyond just a general knowledge.
Right.
Do you think that there is?
Well, when you're looking at scientists who are studying the subject and they're doing it secretly, I was really impressed with the Reddit poster that came out last year and said, I'm a microbiologist assigned to work on alien genes. And these things they use a combination of genes found on Earth, human, animal, and something that we haven't been able to identify yet. And that these were essentially biorobotic organisms that they were studying. I think that's really fascinating. And just a little peek into the world that we're not aware of. There's a black world of scientists who, and believe me, they're also rewriting the laws of physics. They're trying to figure it out. Somebody is figuring this out. Somebody has a textbook about the way that what laws of physics would enable these anti-gravitic craft. Somebody's made that connection. It might have something to do with electricity. I really like T. Townsend Brown's work, and that's been furthered now. There's a new guy who's just starting to publish some research about electrogravitic craft. And so I think that there's probably a connection there that science says doesn't exist. There's a whole world of knowledge out there. Yes. But as for communication, I don't personally think so. And I think that comes from the aliens. Of course, we'd want to know as much as possible. But I think that they keep it surface level if they're communicating with the government or people from the government and the military. I think they're probably keeping it real simple.
And what do you, and I know that you thought about this a lot, but there has been talk about crash recoveries and craft and backwards engineering. This has been going on for decades. It didn't start with David Grush.
No, Grush didn't say anything that most of us who study the subject didn't already know, but it was fascinating that he said.
Yeah, that's right. And I often ponder that. You live in LA, and you know where I live. I live in Palmdale. I'm right next to Skunk Works. And so I see some crazy stuff. There's no question about it. There's no way that I wouldn't. But when I first moved here 3 years ago, Thomas, I went out. I was house shopping. Yep. And I was staying in a hotel, meeting my realtor the next day. And I went and I was just like, man, I want an In-N-Out burger. This was 10 o'clock at night. And I walked down to my Jeep and I go, man, Edwards Air Force Base is right there. Yeah. Let's go to Edwards. It's night. And let's drive out there, and then we'll go to In-N-Out. Okay, so that was my plan. So I drive out, and I don't realize how far in the desert I was, but I was following my GPS. I pull over on the side of the road, talking about anti-gravitic, right? This is what I saw. Now, I can't describe it any other way than actually what happened. So I'm standing in the dark on the side of this road, and I look up over Edwards. I can see Edwards lit up off in the distance. It's there. Anyway, about 10 degrees up in the black sky, I see what looks like static on a black and white TV. Oh, wow. And it kind of lights up and it's staticky. And then it goes. How big is it? It's check this out. So it goes a ring of lights, black, and then disappears. Wow. And I'm standing there and I got my cell phone. Anyway. Wow. I'm waiting. I'm like, wow, that was kind of crazy. And then staticky. Like a football shape. It was like static in the shape of a football. Okay. And then it goes black. Now I get my cell phone out, I put it on video, and I'm waiting, and nothing happens. I stand there for another 20 minutes. But my point is, that I went back the next day to look to see if it was a light on a pole or if it is. There's nothing there. Anyway, that was over a government installation.
Yep.
Now, I don't know what it was, if it's us, if it's them, or I don't have a clue.
Right.
But clearly there is something going on. And when
Oh,
we
yeah.
hear about, David Grush saying these things or crash recoveries from the past,
Right.
and that stuff is going on, and the government wants to say that there's nothing to see here, I'm not buying that.
Secret knowledge. We all societies have had secret knowledge, right? All the way back to the Sumerians. There's a priest, the priest class, and they held the knowledge, and that's in our society of private consciousness. Secrets control the world. Knowledge, knowledge that no one else has controls the world. So of course they're going to hang on to that with everything that they've got, and they're never going to let anyone know exactly what they've got. And that because secrets, knowledge is power, and that's what we're dealing with. Boy, it sure would be neat to get in there and start. It sure would be neat to sort of be hip to sort of what are the physics that you guys are playing with, because that they're playing with stuff. They're way beyond us. And then also, I think that you fly on an airplane. These airplanes, they're the same airplanes that my dad flew on in the 70s. It's the same technology. So I think that in an interesting way, alien technology has put a cap on human technology in a way, because it's been bifurcated. So since it's been bifurcated, science itself is inhibited, and it's very easy to do. It's through academia. It's inhibiting what scientists are allowed to get grants for, what they're allowed to study, and what they're not allowed to study. And they're keeping us in this box, and it's an artificial box, because I think that we would be way further down the road with all kinds of stuff. But right now, that kind of technology points to things that they don't want us looking at, so that there's an artificial ceiling that we're living under, and we've been living under it for quite a while.
The numbers themselves, Thomas, are so big. The numbers, we can't wrap our head around it. In 1995, one exoplanet. One, right?
Right.
One. And today, every single star,
right, has a planet.
Period.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh,
everyone.
Right.
You're right. We're talking about just in our Milky Way over 1 trillion stars, which means over 1 trillion planets.
Yeah, and that's what changed. I was saying earlier that back in the 80s, we thought we were alone, but we didn't know that every single sun has planets around it. Now we're like, wow, that's a lot of planets. I mean,
how many times did you walk out in your backyard when you were a kid and you looked up and went, wow, I wonder if there's, well, now we know. Every single one.
Right.
You brought up Avi Loeb. And I'm sitting with Avi. I'm having dinner, and this subject comes up, and I got corrected by Avi, and it was fun. By the way, it's when you get slapped a little bit.
That's cool.
It's at a pretty cool level. Anyway, so we were talking about the numbers of planets in the Milky Way. And he said it's trillions, and it has to be, 100 billion Earth-like planets.
Right. That's right.
Here.
That's right. Just in this one galaxy, and then there's trillions of galaxies. I mean, it's insane. It's absolutely insane. It's ridiculous. Which also means that there's a lot of conscious, humanoid, self-aware beings out there at every level of society, right? So aliens are visiting us. How cool is that? You guarantee that those aliens are visiting countless other worlds, right? Not all of them as advanced as they are. They're studying dinosaur planets. They're studying planets with Genghis Khan running around on some alien horse. They're studying planets that all different levels, kinds, and then you get into different kinds of planets. For instance, a planet that's tidally locked with its star, which means that it doesn't revolve. So one side always faces the sun, and then the other side is cold as hell. But in the middle, there's a band of habitability. What would a civilization evolve into that lived on a band around their planet? How would that change their view on God? How would it change the kind of fuel that they have access to? How would they develop? How would it affect the societies that they create on those planets? Some solar systems, we've got Mars. It looks like Mars could have been habitable a couple of billion years ago. Really interesting. I don't know what the number is, but could have been habitable. And what about solar systems where there's 2 inhabited planets? What goes on there? Is it lead right to H.G. Wells' War of the Worlds? Or does it create this kind of equanimity that we can't conceive of? The speed of our development, there's no real reason, it's just society. I mean, we could have put a man on the moon in the 1800s if we'd climbed that ladder a little bit faster or in a little bit different way. So the speed of societies and how long it takes them to evolve, where do we fit? Are we like in the back of the class, like smoking a doobie and trying to cheat? Or are we, where are we in that miasma of intelligence and consciousness and planets in the solar system? Aliens know that. They've got it all in a book, and they know right where we fit.
Right. It reminds me of the idea behind any episode in Star Trek, but it's presented in a way that makes sense. What I'm saying is they pull up, okay, we've got an uncatalogued planet.
Right.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So, so they do the drive-by and then they move on. Right. Wouldn't that be what E.T.? There's so much to see out there.
Oh my God! Yeah, how do they decide which planets are worth checking out? Which planets are boring because they've learned everything that they could possibly know about that particular type of intelligence? I can tell you that they're interested in planets with conscious, intelligent beings on it. That really interests them, and I can tell you that civilizations at our level, right, just about to break in to their world, just about to crack artificial intelligence. And I think there's no reason why artificial intelligence wouldn't help us make that leap into anti-gravitic, incredibly efficient energy machines. Like we now have the tools to really accelerate our ability to climb the technological ladder, right? And we don't have the society, we don't have the brains, we don't have the consciousness, we don't have the spirituality to be able to deal with what we're going to find out there. We don't have it. We can't even deal with ourselves. We can't deal with each other. We're about to collapse over here. And imagine if we survive and say it's 10 years from now, and suddenly we've got anti-gravity. And because once you have anti-gravity, you can go anywhere. I mean, it doesn't really matter, and then you've got instantaneous communication. So we're on, as Dolan says, we're on their doorstep. So yeah, they're going to be real interested and keep a close eye on us out of self-preservation at the very least. And with all the trillions of planets that you're talking about out there, we're not the only ones. So whatever,
who's blowing it for us? The Kardashians. Right. I mean, they've got it. What? Okay. All right. This is interesting. Oh, hold on. What's going on over here?
They're slowing us down, man. Somebody ought to take them out. Somebody ought to take those guys out so we can get on with shit.
Yeah, let's go back to Andromeda. It's a little more interesting.
It makes you think that whatever program we're being engaged with, and it is some sort of program, right? There's some sort of basic set of rules that aliens use to engage with our planet. And I think there's all kinds of different species and races, and
give me an example. What are you thinking
about? What
rules do you think that?
Well, I think that there's some sort of non-interference, right?
Right.
Because you could break it up into two categories. It's either invasive or it's non-invasive, right? If it's invasive, it doesn't mean they have to show up and nuke everybody. It could mean that they build a hybrid program, slowly inserting alien beings that look just like humans all around the planet. When they get enough of them together, then they turn on the switch, and we all become zombies, and we become slaves to the aliens, or they incinerate us, or whatever. The planet's theirs. They can have it anytime they want, right? The invasive program has an end game, and who knows, maybe they do that in some planets. Maybe some planets, they move in and they're like, these dudes gotta go. Because they're not here for our stuff, right? They think about it. There's stuff everywhere they look. There's stuff. There's more water on one of the moons of Saturn. There's more iron. I mean, whatever they want, they can find it. They don't need anything to do with us. So they're not here for our stuff. They're here for us. It's the only thing that makes sense. They're here because we are, and they're studying us. I think that they're here. I think doing the research, there are so many different intelligent aliens visiting us. We can't even wrap our minds around it. Could 90, 100, 200, 1,000. Some people just show up, we're a little flyby, and then they were never to be seen again. Others are repeat visitors. Others are engaged in some sort of program that has something to do. They have bases under the ocean, and they're here. They're here so much that some people think maybe they've been here all along, and who knows, maybe they have. Doesn't mean they're from here. It means they've moved in and they have a base. But yeah, I think that there's a set of rules that we're engaged, kind of like the prime directive from Star Trek, right? Some sort of prime directive is going on. But that doesn't mean that they're not going to take us out if they wanted to. And I think that whatever is going on, it's non-invasive. Doesn't mean I'm right. You could change this. Think about if you just wanted to tweak society a little bit, these guys are getting a little too crazy. How about we just lower testosterone just a little bit, or we build a little bacteria and we put it in the food supply, which creates more serotonin, because everybody just feels a little better, and everybody starts getting along because we've got more dopamine and serotonin running through us. And, there's so many different ways that they could non-invasively tweak society, and whether they do that or not here, I don't know, but they could. I think we're involved with some sort of non-invasive program, but that doesn't mean they just are totally hands off, because we've got the gray alien hybrid breeding program to contend with, so we know that they're here for something, but whatever program they have, it's been worked out for who knows how long, millennia, on other planets. We're not the first to have this happen to. We're not the only game in town. There's other programs going on for completely different reasons on other planets with other beings at other phases in their particular technological development, But I think this is a crucial one. I think that why? Because if there's all kinds of planets and they're all figuring out how space and time really work, and they all start flying around everywhere, then you've got a mess on your hands. You've got people who, have found the keys to the Porsche, but don't have a driver's license. You're just asking for trouble. So I think some sort of maintenance program has to be in place in order to create some sort of order, Otherwise it's Star Wars. And I don't think it's Star Wars out there. As much as I love Star Wars, I don't think that civilizations that survive as long as they have, and to be able to do the things they do, nobody wants to blow each other up. I mean, first of all, it's
see
boring.
Evidence of it. We would see evidence of it. We would see planets blowing up. We would see, right? We would see evidence of it. There's another way to look at it, and good and bad. Yes, the universe is full of positive and negative, hot and cold. It's the balance of the order of things.
A little bit of everything.
But the question of not only life, but I think things are very similar. I think that when we have DNA and amino acids and the fundamentals of RNA floating around on meteorites, right? That suggests to me that DNA is universal.
Really, really interesting question. Are there other ways to put life together, or does life find the same set of molecular machinery every time? And that's such a fascinating question. The only evidence we have is from these sort of the microbiologists from Reddit with these alien sort of biobot things that can't exist outside their spaceship. They don't have proper digestive systems. They don't have an olfactory bulb. They excrete. They don't have an asshole. They don't have a urethra. They excrete waste through their skin, which I think is so fucking fascinating.
That's mind blowing. Well, yeah, I remember. And we talk about the vacuum of space and how can you survive in the vacuum of space and how's that? And then there was these reports about 5 years ago that they found bacteria growing on the outside of the ISS.
Right.
Now you got to stop and you got to think to yourself, what is surviving that?
Panspermia. I mean, panspermia is a really interesting, it's been around for the idea has been around for 2,000 years, probably more, but I think it's becoming, it may start, it may have a little extra weight these days. The idea that maybe life is transferred through asteroids and meteors, knocked off into space, flying through space for billions of years, landing in the right spot. Why not? We've got the planets for it. That's for sure.
When the idea of disclosure in the little time that we have left, I want to dive into this. There are abductees and contactees that are holding this stuff in, and they are waiting for. There's only one type of disclosure that'll work. It's not fade to black, right? It's not contact in the desert. It's not a bunch of like-minded people. They need a live broadcast from the Oval Office, right? Anything short of that is
Why do you say that?
Good. They need to be able to turn to somebody and say, "See, I'm not crazy," and anything else isn't really good enough for them, and I understand why.
Right.
Is that part of
it really
reality?
hard? I really admire and have a lot of respect for any abductee that comes out and actually decides to go public. It's hard enough to just tell your husband or wife what you think is going on. I mean, what a journey, and we have so much information from abductees that have come forward. And I haven't heard a lot about the abductee phenomenon lately. David Jacobs is retired, and we don't, we still have researchers out there that are looking into it. And it's funny how all that's taken a huge back seat to the UFO thing since 2017. Because you're right, this is a community that needs that kind of outreach, support, and recognition more than anybody. And you're right. I mean, I'm not a huge proponent of disclosure, but if I was gonna be one, that would be a fantastic reason, to give these guys some relief. that they're not crazy, that they're not undergoing some sort of sleep paralysis. It's a real phenomenon, and it's one of the most fascinating. And the other one is the landing cases that have really declined, and I think they've declined because of our technology.
100%. Thomas, that's one of the best points that can be made.
Which points to the idea that there is some sort of group of rules that these folks adhere to, right? Because they're changing their game as we evolve.
And before 1945, we didn't have radar. Okay, that's it. They could come and go as they want. There was no issues before 1945.
And now, mass communication. I mean,
yeah. Now they know. We see them coming from the outside of the solar system, so they have to get here differently. And that I think that's part of, including with some of the things that I have seen. I've seen literally probably hundreds of sightings and craft, but
wow.
I don't want to bore the audience, but you and I can talk about this off the air. But that there seems to be, again, backed up by science, something interdimensional. And ET understands that they are able to just zip in and zip out.
Yeah,
but they're not pulling up because we're going to see that.
Yeah, I think they still have ways of not being. I think when we see UFOs, it's because they want us to. For the most part, they're allowing themselves to be seen. I think that there's ways and means for them to, and they certainly don't have to show up in physical craft. I mean, if we've got the James Webb telescope, they could, the Black Knight satellite or whatever, they could be keeping a close eye on us. They could be not only monitoring all of our communications, they're monitoring our thoughts. They have access to what is called the noosphere, that sphere of human consciousness that grows and evolves along with us. So they have access to all that. They don't have to be here for that. They're actually here.
Is that does that answer the question about channeling?
Yeah. See, I don't have an opinion on channeling because I haven't needed it sort of to sort of explore the phenomenon. I've had to look into psi phenomenon, remote viewing, random number generators, the idea that there's more to consciousness, that consciousness doesn't die with the brain. Obviously, it must be more like an antenna. That's fascinating. And then you're talking about panspermia, but that just kicks the ball down the road. I'm curious if obviously somewhere at some point in time, life arose out of nothing, and I think that and consciousness go hand in hand. I really do. So what does that tell us about the nature of the universe? Matter.
Well, it's fundamental, isn't it?
It seems like
your shirt that you're wearing is made of the same stuff that my brain is.
Right.
There's no special atoms out there that only make shirts, right?
Yeah, which is stardust,
Right. So what determines at what point does a particle develop consciousness and is no longer this coffee cup?
It makes a lot of sense that matter is imbued with consciousness, or is conscious, that probably our definitions, first of all, we don't even really know what matter is. We don't have a real good definition of magnetism or of electricity. We don't have a great definition of light. So we don't
gravity.
We don't know what any of this stuff is. So what we call matter and what we call consciousness are probably both wrong. There's probably something else that we don't have the word for, that actually sort of, emanates and coalesces and puts together the universe. Which again, alien intelligence opens these doors, and it points the way. It's a light at the end of a dark alley, you can see the outline of a door. It's like, come on, come this way.
Why is that? Why is it always just beyond our grasp? Right? Everything is just right. It's just like the big answers are just a little bit too far away from us.
Asking us to reach, step out of our comfort zone, step out into reality, take another step, walk into the darkness, you trust the universe. It's an invitation. It's an invitation, and it has to be. And I do believe in soulful, a soulful universe, a loving, soulful universe. We've got souls. I've got a soul. I've got consciousness. I have a sense of being. This isn't mine. I didn't create this. I didn't invent being. That's the universe. The universe is a being beyond our imagination. And it is not only guiding us, it's guiding all of the intelligences out there. It has guided them to their success. Whatever bottlenecks that they've been able to surmount, it's because they have stepped into the light of a loving being that is the universe. And that's the direction that we're being encouraged to walk in. Encouraged, begged, entreated. But we have to do it. We have to do it ourselves.
We do.
You can't be handing us anti-gravity machines, like Greer. Greer thinks we're the aliens. If we're nice to them, they'll give us free bullshit. We wouldn't know what to do with it. First thing we do is try to figure out how to blow shit up with it.
That's right. And ET knows that. If ET has figured one thing about us, we shoot first. Right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
We shoot first.
Yeah,
What do you make of the conversations that seem to be bubbling? And I always say that where there's smoke, there's fire. That not all ET, but some ET is us from the future.
Yeah, that's really interesting. There's a guy named Aaron Schwartz. You can find him, but he started posting not too long ago about his abduction experiences, which were very different. Not very different, but different than your typical alien abduction, gray alien thing. And he was told, he was 9 years old. He has like 3 full abductions that he remembers from being a kid, no hypnosis. And he remembers finally under the 3rd abduction, sitting across a table from one of these beings who also looked like a big-headed, he said that the skin had a little green cast to it, but big eyes, big heads, which was really interesting. There's more than one species out there that look like a gray alien, that's another story. These guys, he was finally able to say, "Who are you? Are you aliens?" And the alien said, "I'm sure it looks that way to you." And then went on to say, "We are you from the future. We are humans from the future. We no longer live on Earth, but the planet that we're living on, the beings there aren't nice to us." Don't know what that means. But he said, "We're here to study humans before they started inserting technology, integrating technology into their bodies. We're studying humanity before it started integrating technology into its body," right? And they said, there's lots of other research vehicles here for other reasons, doing other things. And he said, there's lots of other races from your time, from your galaxy, and others from other galaxies. They're here doing their own thing. So that blew my mind, and really kind of things sort of fell into place for me of other research that I've been doing, where it's a plenum. It's this plenum. And yeah, apparently aliens from the future are a part of that. And why wouldn't it be? You know? Why
Yeah, it
wouldn't
makes it's a little bit of a lot of different stuff.
If you can crack gravity, then basically you can crack time. You know?
One of the for me, obviously I love what's going on today, but before the Wright brothers, before hot air balloons, right? That's only 100 years ago, by the way. You stop and you really think about it. It's 1903.
Right.
But if there was something in the sky before 1850, let's say, all right?
Yeah, the airships of the 1890s.
No, so let's go before that.
Before that, yeah.
Right? If it was in the sky, it was either a bug or a bird.
Right.
That's it.
Or a bat.
So what was history seeing? That's what I find really, really compelling.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Dolan's done a lot of research into that, and Jacques Vallée wrote a really neat book. I think it's called "Things Seen in the Sky" or something like that, where it's sort of a history of the old cases. You know, the crazy stuff that happened in the skies over Germany. You know, Columbus, apparently one of the Nina or the Pinto or something saw a ship rise out of the ocean, or a glowing ball or something. So I think that we've been maybe like a vacation spot for a lot of different, and yeah, of course. I mean, you know, aliens have been studying and research. Wouldn't we? We would do this. We would, of course we would. We'd be writing grants like crazy. You know, here's what I want to study. Here, you know, and Jesus, if they have, and I think they can learn a lot about themselves. You know, even if they're not time travelers, just studying civilizations that come from similar planets would hold special interest, right? We'd be interested in a planet that was tidally locked with its star, but we'd be more interested in an Earth-like planet that's around our same size, about as old, and they're out there, and they have life on it. And we would love to compare and think of the things we could learn if we could study another civilization that evolved on a similar planet to Earth, what we'd be able to learn about our similarities and differences and the social evolution, complex systems. I think whatever aliens are studying, they're going to be complex systems. A complex system is like the climate, you know, a butterfly flaps its wings. I mean, it gets so complex so fast that we haven't been able to wrap our minds around. That's why all of our climate science is trash, most of it, because we don't have a grasp on complex systems. But aliens, they're studying complex systems.
Yeah, and if you and I, you know, jump on a starship and we go to a planet and you see a Stone Age civilization that doesn't have fire yet, right? Well, right. I can tell you what we wouldn't do. Thomas Jane doesn't reach in his pocket and toss him a big lighter. That would mess up everything.
Yeah, it would mess up everything for everybody. You know, you're absolutely right. That would not happen.
So
which brings up a really interesting question. I see where you're going with it. Yeah, fascinating, right?
Yeah,
One thing I think is, you know, why would they just leave their crashed spaceships lying around for us to pick up and start tinkering with? Well, one idea is that they want to give us clues,
ideas. You don't have to give us the technology; you just give us the suggestion of it.
Yeah, and it happened after we started playing around with atomic nature, right? We started, nuclear physics became a thing, and then we were gifted some aircraft. But believe me, if they wanted to clean up their mess and they didn't want us to have it, they would. It's not like they don't have the capability of not picking up their trash. They would. They've been left here for us. Now, it could be because it doesn't matter. It could be it's like because we won't understand it anyway, and we're not anywhere near understanding what the hell this is. So it's not going to, make much difference one way or the other. We're going to put it in a garage somewhere, stare at it for a while, get some other people to stare at it. They'll never figure it out. Or they're leaving us some food.
Right. That's such a good point. And I think about this all the time. Especially when a skeptic is talking about this subject. We fired off Pioneer 11, Voyager 1, Voyager 2, right?
Right.
They are now interstellar.
Right.
What if not? That's not crazy technology on that. That's just a metallic thing going in one direction.
Tin can in space.
Right. But if that crash landed on something in 10,000 years, 20,000 years there, what does that do to that planet when they see it?
Right.
Right.
They build a little monument, they start.
Right. It's not anti-gravitic. No, it's not any, as a matter of fact, it's got a record on it.
Right.
It's got a record with a needle and the instructions on how to play it.
It's a record from God. Right.
That's what it would be. Thomas, thank you so much. I'll be seeing you a week from this Thursday. Out at Contact in the Desert. What are you going to speak about?
The talk is called When Worlds Collide, and really interested in this intersection. We're on the verge of incorporating just visiting aliens into our worldview. And at the same time, we're also being crushed by this sort of industrial complex, this corporate military industrial complex that is really trying to turn us into 1984 right now, and it feels almost like a race in some ways. I think we are expanding our consciousness right now, and at the same time we have another force that's trying to stuff it back into the bottle. And so that's what my talk is about. It's called When Worlds Collide. I'm really excited about it.
Can't wait to see you again, man. And I'll see you a week from this Thursday. Thomas, I look forward to our next conversation here on Fade to Black, man.
This was great. Really great, man. Great to be here.
Thank you so much, brother. I'll talk to you. Thomas Jane, he will be with us next Thursday out at Contact in the Desert, a Thursday night, May 30th. I will be hosting the 10th anniversary party, and Thomas will be there. So come and hang out with all of us. It's going to be great. ContactInTheDesert.com. I am your host, Jimmy Church. Another great episode and another great way to kick off the week here and Fade to Black. Tomorrow night, Jim Goodall is going to be with us. We're going to be talking about that place down the street from my house called Lockheed Skunk Works. There you go. Fade to Black. I am your host, Jimmy Church. Perfect night on the show. Fade to Black is produced by Hilton J. Palm, Renee Newman, and Michelle Freed. Thank you, Dex. Thank you, Jonathan. Thank you, Jessica. Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Dennis. Thank you, Kevin. Webmaster is Drew the Geek. Music, Doug Aldrich. Intro, Spaceboy. SpaceboyMusic.com. Fade to Black is produced by KJCR for the Game Changer Network, and this broadcast is owned and copyrighted 2024 by Fade to Black and the Game Changer Network, Inc. It cannot be rebroadcast, downloaded, copied, or used anywhere in the known universe without written permission from Fade to Black or the Game Changer Network. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Thank you, Thomas Jane. And until tomorrow night with Jim Goodall, all I've got to say is go Beckley Tappy.